All right, we just did a 7-day immersion, and I thought I would let him talk about everything that went wrong, every problem that he had, and we'll try to discuss it. So, what was your biggest problem? What did you identify? We obviously covered it, but for the sake of a video.
Urgency was probably my biggest problem. Actually wanting, while in the interaction, actually wanting to push it forward.
Talk right into the phone.
Without getting in my own way. That would be a common thing where I'd open and I couldn't keep it going for long enough, and it would fizzle out. And as soon as it would fizzle out, I would eject. Instead of the girl ejecting, that they were ready to, they were happy to keep talking, but I would almost eject and talk myself out of it before they do that. Low energy as well. It's quite a big thing.
And so if you're low energy and you're not really committing, yet simultaneously you actually want to improve this, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on psychologically there?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's very confusing. It was very bit of a dark spot in my own reflection of my mind, because I didn't understand how I wanted to improve, but when I got into the interaction, when it's time to act, I'd struggle constantly to just stay upbeat and push the interaction forward, because there was nothing external stopping the interaction from going forward. It was all internal, and just identifying that has been quite helpful.
Yeah, almost like you want to make the move, but you feel like you lose, which is true, you do lose a little bit of your social standing by approaching generally. But if you let it get to you, you're almost like you're in like a high school kid approaching a girl that you like, but you don't really want to commit so much that you might embarrass yourself and people might laugh at you or something like that. There's something going on there, when really there should be urgency. It's like, you want this, you want to make this happen.
Yeah, it was almost like a lack of self-belief, and that I deserved a girl, or that I'm adequate enough to be able to just talk to them, have a long conversation with these girls that I find attractive, right? Yeah.
Okay. And obviously I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know what's going on there.
Right. So also another problem that I would have is when I first began pickup, when I first began pickup, I would have the problem. Well, I wouldn't have the problem. So when I first began, I would be more direct, and I would do a more direct approach and compliment the girl, and that probably got me out of my shell a little bit. And as the years went by, I actually kind of got into the idea of being more discreet and not complimenting, but it actually put me back in that shell that I was trying to escape from in the beginning. So I feel like at nighttime, the expectation that you can be a bit more direct meant that I was outside of my shell more. So Nightgame was a little bit easier for me in this immersion, whereas daytime I was going back and I was going into this shell, this stifled version of myself, where I was the girls probably didn't even know what I wanted. Like, did they actually know that I was interested in them, or was I just chatting for the sake of chatting, and that would confuse them, right? And that would leave gaps in the conversation. They'd be confused, and I would see that they were confused, but I didn't want to step over any lines, so then I would self-eject because I'm trying not to cross that barrier of being
Which is
discreet.
weird. It's weird because a lot of guys that would get into Daygame or just approaching during the daytime, they would freak out in the clubs. It's the most common thing. And so you get guys that are just pure day gamers, right? And then you would have pure night gamers. It's quite rare that you would see someone that has the ability or has almost equal amount of time in both. They're rare. That's why I spend a lot of time focusing on both. But usually you get that experience in the club where you're opening groups of girls and you're higher energy and there seems to be more pressure when really there kind of isn't. And then you would go back to Daygame and it just seems kind of boring and slow, and so you don't have any problems verbally during the daytime after having that extra experience in the club.
Yeah, and that's not how it is for me.
It didn't work for you.
No.
Yeah, you were back to
It's almost like the opposite, in the inverse was happening, because the day game would actually feed in. If I had positive results in the day game, night game would actually improve, because the only thing that because the energy is there at the night game, the only thing that needs to be improved is the verbals, that is directly improved during the day, mainly because that's what day games are really predicated on, that verbal ability and the energy.
Yeah, there's a lot more skill,
right,
I would say, when it comes to day game.
Yeah, so
a lot more, the night gamers really, when it comes to, if you got a guy that can do day game and night game, the night game it's really, a lot of it is just high energy, positive, always pulling. There is some technique and it's complicated at some areas, but you get the basics down. If you're of higher mate value and tall enough, you'll be fine in the clubs eventually. But yeah, the day game takes a higher verbal acuity. It's almost like
you have to be present, and you have to be
the
fully
nightclub.
engaged.
Yeah, nightclub's kind of like rugby.
Yeah,
they're like, if you're just a little bit bigger and fitter, you're gonna smash people. And you have to be super skillful to overcome that. And day game's kind of like soccer. You just need the finesse.
Yeah.
The
technical ability, and
I think just maybe a lot of guys just lack that, the baseline of verbal skills to get going, and this is probably why a lot of the clicks on social media are like skewed towards night game, because a lot of guys, they can see it as a bit easier. Can you come a little bit closer? Yeah, just lean in a bit, make it easier.
So we kind of
But you weren't stifled
that
in the club, so
No.
it's like,
no alcohol, but not as stifled.
no problems in the club, no problems like pulling. Let's get pizza.
Yeah.
And it just works. Piece of cake. And then it's like day game. It's like there's something else going on.
Yeah. And some things that we tried implementing to combat that were things like just running into set, getting the energy up, and that kind of helped a bit, actually. Just the adrenaline dump. Instead of going into a set where you're asleep almost, and you're walking around, and then you're trying to go into set just by strolling in, and you got these thoughts in your head like, well, people watching, or that kind of background anxiety, that white noise. Whereas you run in there, you haven't got that time to think. You jump as soon as you see the girl, she sees you. That's when you're saying hello after running. That's a little hack that we did. It's not as calibrated as where we want it to be, But
it's not real confidence either.
No.
It's not counted really. Those guys that say they have approach anxiety, I don't think it's really a thing. It's like there's something else going on. I'm not a psychologist, but you know, that made it a little bit more difficult. We had to work through that just to get the ball rolling, you know. And so we lost a lot of time, which I think hampered the results.
Yeah.
And there's not the clubs aren't open every day in Sydney.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if we were in a place where we just hit the clubs every night,
same,
then we'd be
same as
better
my
off,
hometown as
you know?
well. It's not a nightlife place. It's
Even
almost,
Thursday was shit in Sydney.
Yeah.
Nightlife sucks here now. So it's like Friday, Saturday night. That's it, kind of.
But we just kind of battled the mindsets and tried to juggle with those problems that are there that are very sticky, and we started to make some improvements already.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where you are in a year from now. That's why this video, you can look back on this video and be like, okay, this is where I was. Verbals. So verbals, you know. Miking you up and listening to all the verbals and what we're trying to do. You're not a smooth operator. What about verbals? Like, what did you think what do you think about your verbals and what you're gonna do to improve that over time? A few blind spots. Where were your blind spots that we were working on?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Because there were quite a few, like just small talk things. It's like, you know, the small talk and standing there in the social pressure, knowing that you can have small talk.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, remember we had Mike come out and he just literally just stood there. We mic'd him up. We can listen to his sets and.
I'd try and have this conversation fully thought out of my head, and I'd try and act it, and then I'd run out, or it would go a different way, and then I'd be.
You weren't present at all.
Yeah, I'd be lost, and then because I wasn't present, I wouldn't have anywhere to go. I'd break into almost a silence, and the girl was like, "What is going on?" I'm going, "Oh my God, it's falling apart," and then I'd eject. And really, it just had to, flow a little bit. I just had to be more present and just be in the environment a little bit as well. It's probably a bit of exposure therapy that needs to happen here, and just being in set more and more and more. That's going to help the most with getting the verbals out. Because, when I'm comfortable in a situation, verbals seem to be a lot better.
Yeah, Nightgame, verbals were just fine. It was like two different people.
Yeah, full conversations and. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just self-belief is just being even when girls are walking past, I would always Dave actually noticed that I would always try and I'd look and then I'd dodge as soon as they're looking back at me. I'd be.
As soon as they make eye contact, you'll look away as if you're doing something naughty.
Yeah.
When really you should be trying to force eye contact
and almost
and then go in for the approach as if she started the conversation with her eyes basically, and then it's like a warm approach.
Because
it makes things so much easier if you get that. You know, if you're getting that, utilize it, dude.
Yeah,
that's like
it was an unutilized.
Never happens to me. I got to
manufacture
the approach. You know, I got to get in there and position myself, and you know, if you're getting any sort of a look, dude, it's like you're in the Philippines or some shit.
It's almost made for you a little bit. The open's made so much easier because it's half done. It's almost a warm approach at that point. If you get a smile and some good eye contact, Yeah. And I was running away from that, and you know, calling that out, catching it happen again and again. You know, it's already started to improve, and I hope that continues to get better and better. Yeah, and I really just start to act on that. And we also went through a number of places that I didn't think I could approach in before, like shopping centers, but also specifically like aisles and how to do that. We went through that, and just giving permission to approach in all these different areas, but also with Dave's guidance on where to position yourself, where to start the conversation, and you know, reading the situation, having that physical awareness, that spatial awareness of who's around, and you know, how do I look in this scenario? Is it the right time? Yes, go in and make something of it. Talk about whatever. Say hello. Just
it's going to take a bit of practice, you know.
Yeah, that's a good way to build verbal ability. Just creating conversations out of nothing. That small talk out of anything that's around that environment. Making myself present, because you know, I'm walking to a situation that I've got nothing to go on, so I better make something out of something that's around us, and it better be engaging, and just working on that in the future is going to help a lot with that verbal ability, because what else are you going to talk about in a grocery store? But you know, in a city where I'm from, it's one of the best places, you know, to go, because there's not much else around in this in smaller towns. You know, places aren't open, like bars and clubs aren't open all the time, and a lot of the people that go to those places, they're not the people I want to be around either. So, you know, sometimes the shopping centers and some of the places that Dave's shown me are like my best option, and I have to grow a little bit to take advantage of those.
Yeah, what is it? Buses, trains, shopping centers.
Yeah.
Lights, just all like the basics. We covered a lot of the basics. So you'd be able to get into interactions in most aspects of your life now.
Yeah.
Positioning, getting in there, all the basic stuff. You know, we covered all that. But I think kind of the belief there, it's where you kind of think, if we, you know, now you've got like the basics, practice your craft here, and you're young, so there's no rush to get married tomorrow.
No, exactly.
You know, get the craft up, and then maybe do a mission to some place where it's a little bit easier, and then get that belief that you can get like nines somewhere else. You come back to Australia, next thing you know,
you're at a new level.
Yeah. Then
achievements unlocked kind of thing.
You start to believe it, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is like, you would approach a girl that's like legit like 9 or higher, and it's not like you didn't, you know, like I guess if you've never seen it or never done it, you don't believe it's possible, you know? There's something like that going on.
Yeah.
Where you've got to figure out how to make that happen, and often, you know, going to some place, there's a lot of guys that will go to Poland, you know, they'll go to Poland to pick up hot blondes that they couldn't get in their own country.
Yeah.
But then the hack will be then they come back to Australia after hitting Poland, and then just getting the top tier ones here, because it's not like that you just believe that you can get them, it's more like you just want them. You don't want the other ones.
Yeah.
You want the hot ones.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that you don't believe that you can get them, it's that you actually just want them, you want to make it happen. So then and that, it's almost like that was a big problem.
Yeah.
With a lot of our interactions.
Also the problem with wanting because I didn't have the verbal acuity, the verbal ability, I'd almost put it on the girl to carry the conversation.
Yeah, and they don't have verbal skills unless they're talking to their girlfriends. They're not going to carry it. You know, you're gonna have to do that, especially in Daygame.
Yeah.
You have
So that's
to
what the
carry
higher
it.
energy is needed for, to actually, carry and
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to make it happen. Worst case scenario, just go into autistic interview mode.
yeah.
What are you doing? Where are you going? How are you? What are you doing for work? Study?
Yeah.
Like, worst case scenario, it's still better than ejecting because
Ejecting
you're
for no
struggling.
reason, yeah.
And if you can't get them moving, I know a lot of guys, they say, look, you shouldn't go into interview mode, but
Yeah, it's
are those
about
guys
growth.
who-
It's not about the sweetest, most calibrated game at this point. This is a beginning, not the icing on the cake. It's like the messy part of the cake where we're still making it. We've barely baked. We barely started baking anything. You know. Yeah, it's not at the end of my growth. This is just like a framework to grow from here. You know, we've put in a little bit of a framework, and we're going to see where we can get from this. And
yeah, well, I guess you can look back at this and in 12 months' time and see how much you've grown.
yeah,
What else do you think you're missing that you're going to work on over the next 12 months?
I think volume of sets, it needs to be stepped up immensely. Volume's a big thing.
So volume,
Self-belief.
small talk, self-belief.
Yeah. Approaching more difficult sets, threes, not for the likelihood of it going to work out, but just for building that self-belief.
And that's what a lot of these guys get wrong too, where they get in the game, they will get into it and then they'll start dating the first girl that comes along, and often, they'll leave, they'll start dating her, and they'll stop talking to their game friends because their game friends might expose that they got into game, and so they just get rid of part of their social
and
group.
just killing growth
And then they have a breakup, and then next thing you know,
back in the group.
they're back in reaching out to their wings again. And the thing is, just you gotta go through a lot of girls and date a lot of girls. Like women are always like, oh, he was too controlling. What that really means is I just want to, at 18 to 21, bang a lot of guys and get experience up, while guys take the first girl that comes along, get zero experience, and get fucked.
And they hide from society, like
and
hide from the
girls will
marketplace.
the girls will get the experience up,
Yeah.
and they will be armed and ready to go to battle
Yeah.
and have total control of their relationships when they're ready to settle down.
Yeah.
And guys are very rarely, if ever, in a situation where they have
the
the,
upper hand,
ability to run a proper relationship with the right girl. And you can see why there's a lot of divorce and a lot of breakups, and guys are almost entirely in being exploited, and so now you're at that stage where it's get your experience, get your dating experience up, so that you're as well equipped as possible to be dating these girls, so that when comes along where it's time for a serious relationship, you've got the experience. You're ready to go. So
I think getting out of a small town is going to be good as well. Good idea.
Well, the hook rate's going to be so much higher when you
Yeah.
go back to the small town. It's going to be so much higher. You'll be surprised. You just go, meh, and the girl's like, oh, what was that? Meh, what about? She'll be like asking you questions about it.
Right.
That's definitely going to be an eye-opener when you go back after battling the streets in Sydney
Yeah.
and the clubs.
Sydney is a good place to practice. It's Yeah. High volume, but not
And-
everything's easy, you know. There's some good lessons to be learnt out here.
Yeah, so just you then. If that's everything, if that's everything, we'll stop the video here then.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay. Oh well, that's basically our experience after doing a 7-day immersion. And sometimes you do the immersion because you can't see your weak spots, you can't see your blind spots. That's another thing. You can get in the groups with guys that don't know what they're doing, and they'll tell you what they think your blind spots are, but do they really know what they're doing? Are they actually coaching? Do they have the experience to identify these problems? So that's another thing. If you're struggling, it's probably better when you're a younger guy, not too young, not 18, but
not like me.
because you might get laid a little bit. Next thing you know, you might find yourself becoming a degenerate and not having a career. It's better to go do some study, get a proper job, get yourself, get the ball rolling while you try to wing it yourself, and then reaching out to do some coaching, finding where all those black spots are that you didn't know existed, and then something to work on. It's not a good idea getting into a long-term relationship, getting married, and then reaching out to a dating coach when you're kind of like at the end. It's still okay to go do that. I think it's highly recommended because you need the help. You're running out of time, but it's also like, what have you been doing for the last decade or 20 years? Do it while you're young and fix all these problems and get the experience up. Women just do it naturally. You hear it all the time where they say, oh, he was too controlling, or I just want to explore myself, I just want to get more experience in dating. And what they're doing is they're getting qualified for a proper relationship to make that relationship work in their favor as best as possible. And a lot of men aren't putting themselves in the right they're not getting educated on relationships before getting into one, and they're at a massive disadvantage with a girl that has a lot more experience than them. So this is what we need to be doing when you're in your early 20s, getting some experience up, dating a bunch of girls, so that when you eventually do get into that serious relationship, you're armed, educated, and ready to go. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.